Hey, good evening. Welcome to Hope, our night web gathering where we talk about the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. We are so grateful that you have decided to join us in our quest to proclaim hope. Whether you're needing it tonight more than ever, because I realize there's some of you, or maybe you're just building a routine, and we'll get into that a little bit more, a routine of joining us at our nightly web gathering talking about hope. And yes, that is the confidence we have in Jesus Christ. We are so grateful again that you have decided to take time out of your day, whether you're watching live on this wonderful 68-degree Tuesday evening in Michigan. If you're out of the state of Michigan, these are the days we love. The rest of the year is when we struggle. The humidity comes in August and we're sweating to death, or we're freezing to death in February. But 68 at the end of April is the reason we live in Michigan. But we are so grateful that you've taken the time, whether you're watching live or at another time. But we tonight, as well as all week, will be doing hope a little differently. We still will be taking prayer requests. Make sure you participate with us. We do really want to pray for you, specifically your name, your situation, your struggle, or maybe your victory. We want to praise with you. So join in with us. All you do is text River Hope, RIVERHOPE, no space, to 97000. 97,000 River Hope. A link will then be sent to you. It is theriverchurch.cc/hope. Visit that webpage and you can submit your prayer requests, or you can join in with praying. You don't have to be a part of our church. You don't even have to be living in the state of Michigan or the United States. We would love to join with you around the world praying for those in need in this terrible, tough time. Last night we talked about fear and anxiety. It brought up a lot of struggles and a lot of prayer requests. And we are so grateful that you trust us to pray for you. We have hundreds of people ready to pray for you specifically right now. So join in with us with that. You can also submit your needs, some struggles that you have, maybe a struggle with food, or figure out how you're going to do this or that, or cleaning supplies and diapers, all the different needs that have come over the last couple weeks. Participate with us. All you do is text River Hope to 97,000. There you can submit your need, and someone will contact you to help fill that need. We have watched some incredible needs be filled. Some you never thought about someone would ask, from different education to food to different supplies and all the different things in between. It's really, really been an awesome, incredible thing to watch people love people. And that's the kind of business we're in, loving people and honoring God. And so participate with us, River Hope, to 97000. But if you joined us last night, we started with a little bit of a forum, or kind of a question-answer time. We've titled this week, Questions from Quarantine. Really was born out of the idea that we've, as a staff and as pastors, have had our phones blown up with lots of different questions, different needs of saying, what do I do with this? We realize all the different dynamics of a home life have been difficult, being stuck in your home for weeks, and you're trying to figure out this and that. And so lots of questions, whether that's interpersonal questions or dealing with different struggles or different emotions. We wanted to walk through them as a way of hope for this week. So tonight we are talking about bad habits. I don't know about you, but I've established some bad habits over the last couple weeks. My sleep patterns are and have gone crazy. My 10-cent deposit cans and bottles of Coca-Cola are overflowing, and I've drank too many Cokes over the last several weeks. Just ask my wife, and she can send you a picture of how many I've drank, and we don't have to go there. And so you can say, well, those are bad habits, yes. But realizing that there are some other bad habits rearing their heads, life-changing, life-destroying bad habits. We were just talking about alcohol. Alcohol sales are up 55% this year to last. Pornography views online are up 900%. 900%, that's a real number this year. And so we're looking at life-crushing addictions, bad habits being developed in this time. So we wanted to come to you with some practical and biblical ways on how to work through these bad habits, work through these addictions, and really continue or start the recovery process. And we want to be a part of that. We have titled it Questions from Quarantine. So we want you to participate with us. Send in your questions on the page you're watching, whether that's YouTube or our social media pages, Facebook specifically. You can comment. We have a moderator there that will send your questions to me, and I will ask my esteemed panel this evening. I'm going to turn and introduce to my panel this evening. We have three incredible men, three super smart men, so I feel like I'm not worthy to be on the stage, but that's okay. Sitting directly to my left is Pastor Jeff England. We were talking, he's been counseling longer than I've been alive, literally 38 years, and just seeing all sorts of different addictions and different ups and downs of people in life, and so he's bringing in incredible knowledge. We have Roger Allen, who is a part of our recovery ministry right now. He runs our recovery and addiction ministry. God has used him to get in some crazy places, and maybe he'll talk you through that tonight and had some crazy experiences. And then my friend, Doc Johnson, who has 17 doctoral degrees. He doesn't. He can tell you all those. But well-schooled in counseling and well-schooled in biblical knowledge. And so all three of these men will give some different practical dynamics to questions from quarantine. How have I established these bad habits, and what do I do now? Doc, why don't you get us started? Bad habits. What do I do? What do I do now? I know that's like a huge question, and we could talk for the rest of the night on that specific, but I've established a bad habit. What do I do?
Well, I do think it's an important thing to acknowledge that we all have bad habits. And so we're up here as a panel, and the four of us aren't coming here saying, you know, we've conquered everything, and so we're the poster child now to be able to take care of this. And so to acknowledge it, but to really look at a bad habit, listen to those around you with the idea of, do I really have a bad habit? Is it a bad habit that's just annoying, or is it actually sin? And if it's sin, I think we need to take it to God and then look at His Word to help us in the next steps.
Perfect. Rod, you want to jump in?
I would say that first and foremost that to determine if it's sin, we have to really look deep inside ourselves, because sometimes what might not look like sin to someone else, we know deep in our heart that we've allowed that to supplant who God is in our life. And I would say first and foremost that would be how we have to look at that.
Perfect. Jeff, do you want to jump in? I've established a bad habit. What do I do?
You recognizing that, are you controlling the habit, or is it starting to control you? And that really takes a deep honesty within yourself to answer that question. And I think that's where you have to start, is figure out, do I really have this under control? And there's so many habits that would be so easy to pick up during this time of isolation and quarantine. So I'm hoping that we can help you with some questions tonight, or as a church down the road, whatever we can do. We'll keep talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're realizing. I'm glad Doc pointed that out as well. We're just four men being honest with you tonight and realizing that, wow, this is a real thing. And I know it's difficult to talk through, because you're like, I don't want to tell anybody about this habit. This is secret on my phone. Or this, no one else knows about this. You don't have to comment and say, this is what I'm struggling through on our social media and confess to everyone. Don't feel like you got to do that. But realizing that bad habits do occur when our hands are idle or we have time. It's amazing when you find yourself being tempted, when the enemy seems to reach out at the perfect time to crush the different things you have in your life. and he's really going after you. The Bible describes the enemy as he's here to kill, steal, and destroy. And we realize that. And our goal is to walk through those bad habits. What do I do? Raj, you work with addicts every single day, really, of your life. Is admission the hardest thing in understanding what a bad habit is? All the way from addictions to things that'll crush your life to small addictions. Is admission the hardest thing?
I would say in every addict's life, there's a sense of pride that I can control this, I can handle this, I'm not out of control, that there's nothing that I can't do if I want to do it. So basically, I don't have an addiction, right, because I can stop at any time.
Yeah, that's we've heard that. I can stop this at any time. How many can do that?
I was never able to do that, and I know no one it has. So mine started at a very early age, great family life, and just by playing music to release that edge. You know, you take that drink to smooth things out. It becomes a habit very quickly. And I always said I have control of this, but I never did. So,
yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks for the honesty as well. So we've got two incredible counselors, two people that I always do refer to people to, and I still will continue, and I probably need to talk to them as well. So no, Doc and Jeff, either one of you can jump in. I have bad habits. I'm sitting on your couch. Where do I go? What do I do? What are some practical steps now that in this time, whether you're Zoom calling a counseling time or maybe we're able to meet face to face at some point in our lives, hopefully. But what is that? What do I do?
Well, let me tell you, to start out, you've made an incredible move just by admitting that you have the bad habit. But if I could go back just one step and I want this to be encouraging, and I think tonight is such a good follow-up to last night, because we know the quarantine, the virus has created so much fear and so much anxiety in so many different people. I'm getting calls every day from people that are just experiencing things they've never been through before. But I need you to understand that the world the way it is right now, this is a perfect time for Satan to actually increase and just it is a perfect time for addictions. People are isolated. I'm a firm believer that addictions thrive in isolation and loneliness. And that is our world right now. People are being separated. The fellowship, I believe addictions starve in fellowship. And we don't have those opportunities face to face like we've had completely. So making that move and admitting I've got a problem and getting on that couch or sitting in that chair or making that call, that's a huge first step. And you've really started the battle right there.
Yeah, Jeff, I wanted to pause there, and I'll get to you, Doc. I'm sorry. You said something, reaching out to people. Yeah, just because you can't look somebody face to face, this is where the church comes into play. This is where family comes into play. This is where a spouse, this is where somebody, an accountability partner, this is where somebody comes into your life that says, hey, I want to help, really wants to help, not wants to cut your head off and laugh at you when you stumble, because, man, we're all going to stumble. But no, really, that somebody that said, hey, you know what, I want to help carry you. I want to walk with you through hard, difficult conversations, or maybe you just struggle with your weight and you've been eating ice cream every night. And you begin to go, man, I've established this bad habit. And all of a sudden, I'm not sure where to go, what to do. And it's become habitual. Now, where do I go? Finding somebody that says, you know what, a text or maybe some physical fitness. And realizing there's some practical things in touching base with somebody. We are designed to have interpersonal relationships and interpersonal conversations. If you're trying to do this life alone, you are making a mistake. That is pointed and clear. And walking through with other people is important. Doc, jump in. Somebody sit down. What do I do?
Yeah, you're in the same area I was going with it, because we often think with friends as far as the bad friendships. And we were talking about this a little bit ahead of time, and the context we know we can get a hold of, and people when we can get together, what's going to happen, and that whole concept that bad company corrupts good morals. But we also know from Proverbs that iron sharpens iron. And so you talk about accountability of reaching out, of just somebody who will text you each day and say, how's today gone? And then I'm a big believer in celebrating regularly, feeling good about. And so it's been a day, so it's been a week. Be thankful for that. Taking it to God, thanking Him for giving you the strength, for the friend nearby. Although you may feel alone, you don't have to be alone with this. You can take this journey with someone else.
Perfect. This is one of the questions we got in, and this will be good for you guys to answer. We kind of answered a little bit, but Doc, why don't you start with this, and we'll see if you guys want to jump in afterwards. What's the difference between a bad habit and an addiction? Answer it. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I would definitely starting off with a sin area. I don't think we could talk about an addiction that wouldn't have a sin element to it. That's more who you work with. A bad habit could be something that's annoying and bothers other people that we need to correct those. But again, the difficulty with an addiction and even with bad habits taking over is we've broken a 10 commandment of having someone else take control of our life and not having God take control of our life. And so when we give God our life and then we take it back from Him, that's a horrible place to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great example for you to understand. You can put your bad habit, your addiction, you want to define it however you want. Let's put it in there. The Bible says, and Jesus says specifically, you can't serve two masters. You're going to hate one, you're going to despise the other. It's basically going to be pulled in between as a rope. And what Jesus is trying to draw a picture of, not necessarily, you may not have a golden statue in your bedroom that you worship, but you may have that bad habit or an addiction that controls your life. You wake up every single morning thinking about it. I have to do this. You can't go to sleep because I have to do that. That's where you start to see it become not, let's not even define it as an addiction or bad habit. It becomes a God, small g to you. You become a worship to it. Not in a way that says, you know what, I'm bowing on my hands and knees, but sometimes it literally will put you on your knees because you are giving everything to it, your time, your money, your effort, and you're starting to not honor God. And so you have to look and go, that habit, is it pulling me away from worshiping God? Some do, some don't. And that's where you start to see, is it becoming my master? Am I serving it? Is it controlling all aspects, or beginning to like 50% of my life or 75% of my life, or at some point 100% of your life? And that's when Jesus is saying, hey, I am the true master. Serve and live for me. Put no other gods before me, as the 10 Commandments say. Rod, you want to jump in on that one?
Well, I will say this. As an addiction, it's pretty much 100% of the time your mind, your thought is totally circled around that addiction. It can never leave it. It's always there. Things remind you of it. It brings you back no matter where you're at. Bad habit, one of the bad habits my wife says, I touch my face a lot, my beard. And obviously in this day and age, it's a bad habit.
Yeah, I mean, I heard a stat the other day. You touch your face several hundred or 7,000 times a day. I'm like, that's insane.
And so for me, however, that is a bad habit. It's not an addiction. It is something that I've just through the years came to start doing. The addiction takes over your life. It brings on despair, brings on depression and anxiety, because anxiety, you don't know, not only can't you control it, but you also don't know if when you're going to get your next fix. And that brings on a lot of anxiety. So
yeah, absolutely. Jeff, you want to jump in on that one?
I just wanted to say I agree with what you guys are saying. It's about control, and I think that addictions always relate to a loss of self-control, and addictions always lead to separation from God. So, in bad habits, I can see both ways. but addiction's always so.
Yeah, that's great. It's good to delineate those. It's hard to. I know we feel like we're clumping them together. Some people may be establishing a bad habit right now that's going to develop into an addiction that's going to crush your life. We realize that. And we want to be honest and tell you we love you. We want to fight with you and sometimes fight you for it. But realizing that you have to admit that's going on. This is a question, Jeff. You've probably had to counsel somebody in this dynamic, and I want to see what you think on this. A food addiction. What do I do? I can't give up food completely. So how do I lose that bad habit or an addiction? What do I do?
You know, I really believe, and I'm speaking off the cuff here, and I'm always, I'm not a public speaker very well, but I'm going to tell you what I think is that all addictions, the basis of them are all the same. And whether it's food or whether it's alcohol or whether it's pornography, whatever it might be, the basis is all the same. And it is about that lack of self-control. And with the acknowledgement that I have an issue with food or overeating or eating the wrong foods, that is the first step. That is where you've made a great step if you are acknowledging that that's a problem. The second step, get some help. Talk to somebody about it. Sit down and talk to them and say, look, I need some accountability. What's an alternative to this? And generally, you're going to learn real quickly that there's several things you can do to help relieve that compulsion to overeat or that compulsion to buy certain things. And it will be changing some of the bad habits associated with that addiction about when you go shopping and what time you eat and what you keep in your house. You can get a lot of help with that. And I think programs that have been out there for years related to addictions, from Weight Watchers to the 12-step program, Celebrate Recovery, all the different programs, they rely on fellowship. They rely on support. And eating is one that we can really tend to keep very, very secret. And I just want you to reach out, because that's where you're going to find your help.
That's great. You talked about self-control. Doc, where does self-control come from? What is that?
I think being organized, planning out ahead of time, evaluating something where just creating structure in our lives, and sometimes we need others to help us with that.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping you'd answer it this way, so I'll answer it this way. The fruit of the Spirit is self-control. And so we see that understanding self-control is not built on self. You don't build, you are like, man, I have this all figured out. No, the self-control comes from the Spirit of God working in your heart to give you the ability to have self-control. And so once you begin to put more of God in your life, that's when you develop the ability to say, you know what, I can stop doing this. Jeff gave us some incredibly practical ways. I'm thinking maybe just have a grocery list. Follow that grocery list when you go to the grocery store. Limit what you're going to buy. Have an accountability to that. And so you see, those are practical, real ways, biblical and practical, to see, okay, how do I continue to fight through and battle through this thing called addiction? Guys, I'd love to hear from all three of you on this one. The temptations seem so strong because of this idle time. How do I get through it? That's such a huge thing. I know we kind of talked a little bit about it, and I think if everyone's honest at home, it's real. The idle time, the so much time, or the whether it's a technology addiction, we were talking about that. I mean, I have to limit my 11-year-old's screen time, and someone should limit my screen time as well. But you have to look and go, all right, I have to not have my head in the screen so much. Bad habit could become an addiction, could become a life destroyer. What does idle time have to do with it, and how do I fill that time practically?
I like the wisdom in Ecclesiastes where it's said that with idleness the roof leaks. And I think that the opposite of idleness is diligence. And I think if we're diligent And these days, in this isolation, I think diligence comes across as one of the things we have to be doing is moving. And this is, as much has been taken away from people. And what's the unemployment? It's up to like 30 million people have applied for unemployment now. It's just crushing. But the fact is that people are faced with idleness that have never had to face it. They've always worked. They've always done things. But you have to find a way to keep moving. I know there's stuff that can be done around your place. I know there's people you could be reaching out to and talking to or encouraging. I know there's things that can be done besides watching TV. And I've heard so many stories of binge watching, and I've watched a full series of season after season and different things. And I think that's fun, at certain times. But I think it can become such an encourager to be idle. And I think the Bible really warns us that idleness is not a good thing. So what are your ways to get moving? What kind of things can you do so you're not idle is where I would start with that.
That's great. Anyway, you guys want to jump in on that?
I was just going to say, assess what that addiction is going to do to your life. When you look back at what you've already accomplished, whether it's 7 days of sobriety, a week of sobriety, 15 years of sobriety, are you willing to burn your life down for that one time? And I think you have to look at that. That should be a motivator to get up and get going, as Jeff said.
Perfect.
I think with a lot of bad habits, when you remove that, you have to replace it with a good habit. We haven't talked much about good habits tonight, but this is an excellent time also to create some good habits. You have a lot more time typically with your schedule. You're together as a family, so create some positive family habits. I was looking a little bit online last night, and it was Ben Franklin said the measure of a man basically is if you take all of his good habits and subtract his bad habits, what's left? And hopefully there's something left of us. But maybe we need to talk a little bit more about good habits. What good habits are you developing in your life? Why don't you notice those good habits and spend some time with those? Maybe by habit you encourage others. The other thing I want to say with that is, Roger, you mentioned earlier that when it comes to an addiction, the person wakes up in the morning thinking about it, they spend their day thinking about it. Well, maybe that's another area for us, is thinking about others. And how can we serve someone else? How can we reach someone else, reach out to them, encourage them? So maybe we're taking our minds off ourselves.
That's really good. I mean, all three kind of different perspectives, but really applicable to different people. We had some pro athletes on last week. Rocco Grimaldi, who's a hockey player for the Nashville Predators, and Caleb Stanko plays midfield for FC Cincinnati. And we were talking about what they're doing during this time. And it was interesting. They both really talked about scheduling things. You have to schedule things in your life. Schedule, like maybe you're like, I don't have anything to do for the next week. Well, schedule some different things. Try to knock off a thing a day, or schedule a walk for some exercise, and add those dynamics. Those are just practical nuggets. I know you're like, wow, those are super profound. They're not really at all. They're really just simple, basic saying, you know what? I can't just sit on my couch and watch TV and eat ice cream all day. I'd like to do it, right? I really have to have some motivation, some plan, some movement, because really what the enemy's trying to do is, we talked about being in a group. If you're by yourself, the enemy can pick you off. If you're not doing anything, the enemy can pick you off. And really, if you're not paying attention and not then don't have any self-control, the enemy can pick you off. So we're really talking about three main temptations we're dealing with right now. And that's every person watching. Just about every person watching is dealing with that. And so you're not alone, realizing there's some resources. Raj, you text me some resources, and we're going to post those on social media so you can see these links. But talk about how those groups and those tables are so crucial in this time.
So the connection portion.
Yeah, that's great.
The fact that you have an accountability person that is going to look at you with love and not down at you. And I mean, that was one of the first things that we have to look at. Who do you have in your circle of friends? that will uplift and encourage you to maintain sobriety. The Zoom meetings have been great. I know they're not the same thing as an in-person 12-step meeting like NAA or Celebrate Recovery or even our program. However, they do bring you that connection that you need.
You want to talk
maintain
about some of those specific ones? There's a women's group. There's some
Yeah,
groups.
so tonight at 8 o'clock for the ladies, one of our table leaders is having a Zoom meeting, and as Caleb said, there will be that information online that you can find. Also, the men's at 9 o'clock tonight, and for Families United, it will be on Thursday at 8 o'clock. So if you have a loved one that's struggling, or you see that behavior start returning that you saw in the past, maybe that's Family United can help you not enable, but to understand and to encourage that loved one who's struggling right now.
Yeah, I mean we want to give you practical options as well. We also want to let you know you don't have to do this alone. You may not feel comfortable going to those tables. You let the person that is commenting on there, you let them know. One of us will reach out to you specifically. We have got other staff. We've got pastors that would want to pray with you, encourage you. That's why we have the prayer line. Maybe you just feel so overwhelmed by temptation. That's why we want to pray for you. Give a time that we can pray for you for encouragement, but also connect you with some needs. You say, man, you don't understand what I'm going through. Yeah, you're right. But what we can do is pray to a God who does. And he does know what you're going through, and he hears what you're going through. And we would want to understand and help you understand that God is bigger than your temptation. God is bigger than your struggle, and he is the way you can get through any small bad habit to life-changing, life-destroying addictions. And our goal is to make sure you have all those resources. I'm going to give you guys kind of one final statement, and you guys can, it doesn't be a statement, you can give a little explanation, and then I'll kind of send us off with one quick thing, okay? Doc, do you want to start us out?
I'd like to start off by saying God cares about you. God loves you so much that he sent his son to die for you. And no matter what your past has been, I don't have to know who you are. Obviously, I can't even see you right now. But I do know who God is, and he loves you, and he has a plan for your life. As we've talked about God wanting to help us in our life, it's a process of just realizing that we've broken that relationship with God by our sin, by our choices, by our addictions even. But it's not over for us. As long as we have a breath, we can give that to him. And so realizing that Jesus came, lived a perfect life, although he died on the cross for our sins, he rose again and is offering us eternal life and abundant life. And so to give your life to him right now, realize he cares for you, is willing to forgive you from your past, and give you a better future on earth and in heaven.
Amen. My advice is going to be practical. In fact, I'm probably speaking to someone out there right now that you've kept in your phone those contacts from the past. You think that they are your friends and that you can reach out to them, but actually in the back of your mind and in your heart, you know that's going to be your fallback when everything goes south. And let's face it, for some of you, everything's went south. And I want you to think about that and dump those things that are going to take you back into bondage, since you've already been taken from bondage and out of Egypt.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was great. I know I'm speaking to people that have days, weeks, months, years of sobriety under their belt right now, and they're struggling. And maybe some of you have already slipped. Maybe you've fallen back into some habits through loss of job or the isolation or whatever's occurred. And I want you to remember some of the basics of what you were taught back early in your days of recovery. And one of them was gratitude. And that's a really hard thing for me to sit here and preach at you or say to you when I don't know exactly what you're going through. But I've been talking to a lot of people these days, and I'm kind of getting a feel for it. And I'm seeing the hurt, and I'm seeing the fear, and I'm just asking you to please refocus on the things that you still have to be grateful for, because there are things, and there are people around you. There's things God's given you. There's just, and as Doc gave you the gospel, just the fact that he loves you so much that he gave you his son. please get back to thinking about what you have to be grateful for instead of the focus. The devil wants you to focus on what you've lost, and I don't want you to go there, okay? I don't want you to dwell in that spot. It's hard to not slip there occasionally, but if I can encourage you in any way, shape, or form, please let us know. But hang in there.
That's great. That's great. I hope you were blessed by this time, and whether you're watching live or at another time, you'll reach out to us. Establishing good habits is such a great dynamic in this. You never thought, well, could I establish good habits in this time? Yeah, hopefully. That's a goal. But realizing that Jesus Christ is our key in our idea of hope, whether that's dealing with fear or on a bad habit. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about conflict resolution. It's going to be a good one. You'll want to be here for that one. I think it's going to rain as well, so you won't be able to be outside, and so you can be inside listening to figure out how to deal with conflict. I'm expecting some doozies of some good questions, because I know as long as you're not living alone, you may be having conflict with yourself, but if you're living with somebody else over this time, you realize there's been conflict. I don't care how long you've been married. I don't care if it's a sibling. I don't care if it's a parent. I don't care any of the excuses. We know when people get together, there's going to be conflict. That's what we deal with. But we really appreciate you taking, again, the time tonight to deal with hope. That's what we're about. Doc shared the hope and the confidence we have in Jesus Christ. If we can let you know how to receive that, you let us know. Reach out. If we can help you deal with anything going on in life, if we can pray for you, deal with some different needs, we want to do that. Tomorrow, we're looking forward to partnering with Gleaners right here at our Holly location. If you want to be a part of that, you need some food, you reach out. We'd love to make sure your family is taken care of. We do love you. We miss you. We're so grateful again that you've decided to join us here at Hope Live. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe out there, and hopefully we'll get to see you soon. Bye now.